Well, good morning. Hope you had a great weekend. This is Steve Ramirez. I was a sports writer for over 30 years, and now I'm starting a video blog talking mainly on SoCal sports. And today I thought I would recap the weekend for the Dodgers and the Rams. The Dodgers, they were able to sweep the Marlins this past weekend, winning 3 games, and I believe they outscored them by a total of 19-4, winning 2-1 on Friday, 7-0 on Saturday, and 10-3 on Sunday. And the Dodgers are now the best team in baseball record-wise, 84-36. They lead the National League West by 18 games. So with about 8 weeks to go in the regular season, the division is pretty much wrapped up, and we'll be able to concentrate on October. They also have the best record in the National League by 6.5 games over the New York Mets in that race for the number 1 seed in the playoffs. And they also, an important advantage, they have a 7.5 game edge over the best team in the American League, the Houston Astros. And that'll obviously be important to have, if they are able to make it to the World Series again, to have home field advantage for the World Series. But they've been on a pretty good hot streak the last month and a half, and I was really impressed with Sunday's game, facing arguably the top pitcher in baseball in Sandy Alcantara, and they were able to score 6 runs and knock him out in the 4th inning. He didn't get through 4 innings. That was impressive, because he came in with an 11-5 record, I believe, and had an ERA of 1.92. He left with a ERA of 2.19. So that's very impressive, and it's impressive because a lot of people are talking how the Mets have better pitching than the Dodgers, and might have an advantage in the playoffs because they have DeGrom and Scherzer. But if the Dodgers are hitting like this, if they can chase the best pitcher, arguably the best pitcher in baseball, in the 4th inning, then you would think, in theory, they'd be able to do it against DeGrom and Scherzer, and as long as their pitchers are pitching well, and they have a pretty good staff with Julio Urias, Tony Gonsolin, who now I believe assumes the ERA lead. He's got the best ERA in baseball, or at least in the National League. And also they have Tyler Anderson, and Clayton Kershaw is expected back in a couple weeks, and they'll be able to get him up to speed in time for the playoffs. So that could be a pretty good 1-2-3 punch with Urias, Gonsolin, and Kershaw, and then you throw in Tyler Anderson, who's been very strong all year, and then Dustin May, who came back from being off a little bit over a year from Tommy John surgery, and he held the Marlins. He shut out the Marlins for 5 innings, and giving up just 1 hit. And the Marlins are not the best hitting team in the National League, but still, to have your first outing to be that impressive, that's a good sign moving forward. And the thing about the Dodgers is their lineup, leading off the game with Mookie Wilson, Trey Turner, and Freddie Freeman. It just doesn't get better than that. And then you throw in Will Smith, who's having a really good year. He's got 18 home runs. May wind up with 25 by the end of the year. We'll see. He's got 79 RBIs, so he has a chance to get in the 90 RBI range, which is a pretty good year. And Gavin Lux is having his best year as a pro, as a major leaguer. He's currently hitting 295 with 6 home runs and 36 RBIs, and he leads the National League in triples with 7. And then there's talk of, or some fans are wondering why the Dodgers still keep running Cody Bellinger out there. He's hitting 206, and he's been around the 200 mark most of the year. Does have 17 home runs, so he might be able to hit between 20 and 25 by the end of the year. We'll see. But he's so good defensively. You know, they always say the tradition is that you want to be strong up the middle pitching. And this is defensively. Pitching, catcher, shortstop, second baseman, and center field. You'll sacrifice a little bit of offense for guys who field the ball extremely well at those positions. That's the reason you keep Bellinger in there. And plus, he's got a puncher's chance of being able to hit a home run. But he's going to prevent more runs than he's going to produce. So that's as long as you're on the plus side, that's the most important factor. And so Dodgers are have a very formidable team, and they're playing really well. And now they just want to kind of prepare for the postseason. They can get ready. Last year they were trying to chase down the Giants, and I think eventually it caught up to them in the National League Championship Series after they were able to beat the Giants in 5 games, losing the division by 1 game and then beating them in 5 games in the divisional round. They basically, at least pitching wise, they basically ran out of gas. And to be healthy, to be able to set your rotation going into the playoffs, and to be fresh, that's the key going forward. And I like the position they're in right now. And we'll see what happens in October. This week, they starting tonight, they host the Milwaukee Brewers for 3 games. They just split with the Brewers in Milwaukee last week, and now they get their turn at Dodger Stadium. And then they play the Marlins again. They'll travel to Miami, and then we'll see the Mets in New York after that. And the important thing about that is then they're basically in the Western time zone for the remainder of the regular season. Now moving on to the Rams, they after winning their first preseason game against the Chargers 2 weeks ago, they lost on Friday night to the Texans at SoFi Stadium 24-20. Once again, Bryce Perkins, he was a quarterback in the second half, and he had a decent night, 11-13 for 123 yards. And rookie sensation, undrafted free agent Lance McCutcheon at wide receiver had another great night, 5 receptions for 96 yards. Receiver Jacob Harris returned and had 2 catches in the fourth quarter. And on Saturday, the Rams made some cuts to get down to 80. Teams had to be down to 80 this week, by the end of this week. And the Rams cut tight end Kendall Blanton, who did not make it through waivers, was scooped up by the Washington Commanders today, or Sunday. They also cut running back Raymond Calais, defensive back Jordan McVay, running back A.J. Rose, and wide receiver Jay Koski, who had been injured. None of those cuts are surprising. Blanton a little bit, but it could be the Rams are going to keep more receivers than tight ends. And they have some big receivers who they might be able to kind of be a receiver and tight end clothing, so to speak. another key story coming out of camp. Well, first let me talk about how offensive lineman Logan Bruss, the Rams' top draft pick this year, he tore his ACL and MCL, and he's going to be lost for the season. Tough break for him. Tough break for the Rams because initially he was competing for the starting right guard spot. He lost that to Coleman Shelton, who's going to start at right guard this year, and but he was going to be a key contributor. You want to have depth-wise to have 3 linemen you can rotate across the board, and he was going to be one of those guys. And so that kind of limits their depth a little bit. They still should be okay with their starters with Joseph Noteboom at left tackle, David Edwards at left guard, Brian Allen center, Coleman Shelton at right guard, and veteran Rob Havenstein at right tackle. So they still look pretty good. And another one of the stories that's being talked about is that the Rams might be considering cutting John Wolford and try to see if they can get him to the practice squad. That way they don't have to carry 3 quarterbacks on the 53-man roster like they did last year, because they didn't want to lose Bryce Perkins. The thought was Bryce Perkins would be scooped up if they put him on the waiver wire. And that still may be the case, where Wolford might not be. That remains to be seen, but that's kind of the story that's being talked about. And Wolford, he was okay a little bit on Friday. He was 14 of 22 for 142 yards and was sacked twice. The difference between him and Perkins is athletic enough where he can extend plays, where Wolford is not likely to do that. He has some ability to do that, but not as much as Perkins. And so we'll just see how that story plays out, and it'll come to a head after this week's game against the Cincinnati Bengals in a rematch in name only of the Super Bowl. Obviously, you can't compare a Super Bowl game with exhibition game, especially a third and final exhibition game. But will it be a key game? If I'm sure Lawrence McCutcheon will probably not Lawrence. That's the old Ram. Sorry, I'm an longtime Ram fan. So when I hear the name McCutcheon, I think of Lawrence. But this is Lance McCutcheon. No relation to Lawrence. He should play again this week, and he's one I believe is gonna make this football team, gonna make this 53-man roster. He's someone that he's been so effective in the preseason that I could see a team scooping him up. But also another battle is the big question going into camp: who was going to replace Von Miller, who went to the Buffalo Bills? And most of the info coming out was going to be Justin Hollins or Terrell Lewis. I really like Lewis. He is very athletic, has a lot of speed coming off the edge. His problem in recent years has not been ability, but to stay healthy. He's been on kind of a pitch count since the Rams drafted him out of Alabama, and that's going to be the big thing with him is, can he stay healthy? Can he be able to go on the amount of snaps that they're going to need him? He seems to me anyways, to be their best option. Although Justin Hollins is not a bad player too. He was having a good year last year before he got hurt. So that's kind of a little update on where the Rams are. And like I said, they finished the finished the preseason on Saturday against the Bengals in Cincinnati. Game is at 3 p.m. and we'll be preparing their final rehearsal before their September 8th opening night game against the Buffalo Bills at SoFi Stadium. So that's my report for this weekend. Hope you enjoyed it, and until next time.